Salamat Balik, that's Syrian for welcome. We joyously welcome you today. You know, our hearts rise in joy every month when we meet, blending each of our unique energies to a tapestry of light that's igniting the consciousness grid around Gaia. You know, people often ask us, what can I do? Most of the Ascended Master messages and GF messages encourage us more than ever to join together, either in person in groups or virtually as we're doing today. So let's just take a moment to consciously connect to each other and to feel the tapestry of light that we are creating so that we can manifest the changes that our hearts desire. Last month was March Madness. We survived, but I have to admit it was a dilly of a month. The energies from March were designed to upgrade and accelerate our bodies into our galactic crystalline light bodies, right? Our fifth dimensional bodies. So also there were many geomagnetic storms, many in a row, which is highly unusual. We didn't have so many solar flares, not of any significance for the past couple months. They're starting up again, but we did have the geomagnetic storms, which were coming in weekly there, especially during March, and they had new upgrades and DNA changes for the elevation of our physical bodies so that we can embody more light and hold more light, right? So some of the symptoms that people experienced with these geomagnetic storms were tingling of the head, the crown chakra, issues with breathing, not being able to sleep, feeling lightheaded and perhaps disconnected from this reality, just nothing was making sense at all, and lethargy, seeing more things from other dimensions, which Sheldan will talk more about, so pay attention to that. And time warps, differently than what we've been experiencing, and headaches, they continue, and vivid dreaming. Now, I went to the chiropractor, and he's one that doesn't really know what we do and doesn't. I mentioned chakras once, and he rolled his eyes. So he's not, but he's very, very good. And I told him that I was having tingling at the top of my head, and I didn't mention the word chakra because I already know he doesn't like it. And he said, that's interesting because quite a few people are reporting that. Let's take a look. So I found that very interesting. So, of course, unable to sleep, that's ongoing, isn't it? Time itself has been off, and it's been off for quite a while. So we're changing from experiencing time as linear to non-sequential. From linear to non-sequential. And Sheldan's going to explain the significance of this in more detail. So slipping into experiencing life and time in a non-sequential way, even though it is just momentary, it can cause confusion in many. Me? It was making me a little bit crazy there for a while, but what I found was the more and more I just surrender and to the energies and the new feelings and sensations, the easier it is on my body. So surrendering is, well, it takes a lot of conscious effort and practice. So as we transmute these energies into light, the dark's hold on us weakens. That's very important. Our unique energies are needed to help to serve others to get through the process. We're the way showers. We're the ones that, with the machetes going through the jungle, making a path for others to follow. It's important for us to take this next step. We've all learned a lot. And so now we're being asked to implement everything we learned. Put it to practice. The Galactic Federation encourages us to speak our truth, but with love and in our hearts. We're not here to blow people out of the water. We're here to gently help them through the energy waves that are coming in. So Master Hilarion, well, he reminds us that every facet of our lives is being realigned to the higher purpose and intention for it. That's why it's very important for us to sit down in writing all that we intend and desire for ourselves, our families, and the world, and state it with great intention and feeling each and every day so that it may become manifest. He recommends that we work on our wording so that it is clear for our highest good and for the highest good of all concerned. That's how we trust the divine timing. This is how we also place ourselves in the new paradigm as the unlimited beings that they keep telling us we are. This is how we anchor unlimited potential into ourselves and the earth. It helps to uplift all of humanity, for you know, we're all one. So learning to trust is essential, and that's why we're presenting this webinar. We know it in our hearts. We know it deeply in our hearts, but now we have to trust in the divine with every fiber of our being. So know that Sheldan's webinars are activational, and let's just open up, relax, and allow. It's all yours, darling.
Thank you, my love. I had my mic turned off.
Yes, you did.
I wanted people to just hear you, not me breathing or whatever.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, let us begin, as we always do, with a prayer. A quick, painless, but very powerful prayer. So we ask the Supreme Creative Force to come and surround all of us across this wonderful world of ours. And let this energy that's going to be given to you, either done through the dimensions or through my voice, and let it all help you, every one of the people listening to me, so that you can take my energy and the energies of the cosmos and the wonderful energies of the great Creator and allow and allow all of us to come together and take the information and energy that's about to be given to you and use it to create this new reality. So be it. Now, as you can see, today is called Trusting Divine Timing. And so let's move on, as I always do, to the macrocosm. It worked. Yay. Now, this is a portrait of our galaxy. And you can see it's got things, this is a NASA one, and so you can see the picture of our sun, which is just below in the bottom part of the picture. And you can see things about star-forming regions and spiral arms. There's 9 of these spiral arms, 4 of which are the major ones. And then the central black hole, which is where the interdimensional energy comes. Remember, a black hole is something that goes from this dimension to higher dimensions. And so it is taking all this energy that we have, bringing it up, and then it's coming out as a white hole. It's a great light. And you can look here and you can see the great light of the wonderful, what they call, central galactic bulge of our galaxy. And so with that, let us move on and move down into our reality. And with it, evidence of the Galactic Federations in our skies. This is a picture taken a few years ago. It shows a, right here you can see it, a Lyran scout ship over Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where in a few months we will have the next Olympics. And then this is a picture I put in because I like it. This is a Syrian scout ship. You can see the little round thing. You can barely see the little foil. And it's taken from across a wide field, probably about a mile away or more. And I look at it and I say, if I was seeing that, I would be starting my come here and pick me up game. But I guess they know that if I come too close, I can probably get a ride. Then I'll ask, can I stay here?
Well, we all want to hitchhike with you.
I like that. I miss that because from this distance they could beam me up in a matter of seconds. Just feel like you're in an fast elevator and it suddenly stops, and you get that wonderful, weird kind of stomach feeling. That's what you get when you get beamed up. I would love to get beamed up. into the cargo hold of that wonderful vehicle, and then up to the mothership. Yeah. One can hope, can't they? Okay. This was in an English field anyway. Close, but no cigars, they like to say in English. All right. Now, the mass landings, as I've been saying again and again, are the key to all that is to follow. There's the time in our history before the mass landings and the time after. The immediate time after is the watershed. And so I've taken a picture that I've used not in a while, but it's a wonderful picture, and it shows the landings. As it says here, as I've been just implying, first contact is the most important event in human history. That's why I call it a watershed event. A watershed event is an event that is so major, it is memorable. And I feel the most memorable event in our history will be that event, when all these magnificent ships from all the different star nations of the Galactic Federation show up and give us the welcoming home mission. It almost makes me want to cry when I see all those ships. Now, what we have to learn, when we're going to get into trusting divine time, we have to understand, what is this thing we call time? What is it that makes it different? Now, what has happened to us, as I've been saying again and again and again, but needs to constantly be repeated, we are in 3D. 3D is because we are in limited consciousness. 5D is when we are in full consciousness. Now, let's look at the differences. First of all, let's look at unlimited consciousness. Now, here, remember, the concepts of past, present, and future, and sequential time. Oh, that was a minute ago. That's in the past. We're in the present right now, and if you call me up in an hour, that's in the future. Well, in 5D, all of that does not exist. 5D is a surrealistic, non-sequential time frame. Now, when you're fully conscious, you do not see time as just something around you that you're constantly moving through, in other words, going from past to present to future. They see it as you have your eternal now. You always live in your eternal now. Eternal now is the energy of your higher self. But in full consciousness, your higher self, your God source, your soul energy has merged completely with the energy we now have, this limited consciousness energy. Our brain has been moved up to its full potential. We can now see through the dimensions. We can hear through the dimensions. And suddenly, we are one, completely one, with our life contract. And what does that mean? It means, as it says here, you easily move from past to present to future. You are constantly in your eternal now. So there's no sequential time. It's where your thoughts take you that you are. So suddenly, you view your environment as based upon thoughts. Thoughts, in turn, are based upon your life contract. You are constantly moving through the blessings of your life contract, being blessed, blessing back, doing ceremonies to emphasize what you have done and are doing, and moving around. If as part of your life contract, you need to look at past lives, you can do that. You can look in the Akashic records and experience all of that. That's part of the process of a divine thought. Now, the Mayans, when they looked at time, talked about the purpose of time, as they saw it within the 3D mind, was to create the perfect mind. And of course, the perfect mind was unlimited. And this they called the Tum, or the diamond mind. And this is what we live in now. We live within the Tum. We live within full consciousness. Thought. Now that thought puts us in our eternal now, because the purpose of that perfect thought is to understand who we are and where we are going. But where we are going is not in the concept of a future time. It's in concept of completing our life contract. So we're constantly looking at goals. We are goal-oriented. And we can achieve these goals by thought, the power of the mind. Now let's look at this a little better. Hence, time ceases, as it says here, to be a part of every day. Now, as I said, in 5D you can look through the dimensions, you can think through the dimensions. There is no limit. So you are living in a multi-dimensional hologram. As hard as that may seem to try to imagine, close your eyes, look at the darkness. Feel the eternalness of that darkness and of that light that's in you. And as you imagine the light will come through and it will brighten up the darkness. That light is your eternal energies. The source of those eternal energies is heaven. And that's our reality. We're not limited by a constant need to look at time as a sequential event. Time becomes an experience, but it's not a happening. Now you might say, what's the difference between a happening and an experience? Let's look at that. An experience is something that is part of your life contract. You participate in it. A happening is sequential. Oh, wow. 5 minutes from now, we're going to be doing that. We don't think in that terminology. So time becomes not an experience. It becomes a non-sequential, almost surrealistic-like way that our eternal now, that light of eternity that is us, goes through and through consciousness. And consciousness is just the spiritual awareness of a reality. A reality is the community, the construct of all around us to create what we are in. So we and everyone else is constantly manifesting aspects of that reality. So the reality is flexible. Now we're used to being in an inflexible environment. In other words, you get out an axe, you knock down a tree, the tree isn't going to grow back. In 5D, the tree grows back because the tree lives in the past and in the future at the same time, just like us. We become immortal beings. We become our true selves. We mirror how we wish to look. So we remain constantly young. We remain able to do whatever we wish. Because of that, we can get into our light body at any time, manifest the light body, and go anywhere at the speed of thought. Think of when you were younger, you'd imagine, I wish I was in Hawaii, or I wish I was someplace nice and warm. Well, the minute you say that, you're there. That's how fast thought works. Now, let's look at time in 3D. Now, we are moving out of 3D. So sequential is melting. Now, why do I say that? One of the things of moving us into a new reality is that time has sped up. Days seem shorter and shorter. Our ability, if we really imagine it and focus on it. When I was dealing every day with Saint Germain, he would always tell me, if you truly focus, and that means with every instance of your mind, if you truly focus, it will happen. The reason for that is very simple. The universe believes deeply that whatever you truly want, you are to receive. Our minds are moving to where past, present, and future exist around us, but they're fading. They're fading. So I got this wonderful Salvador Dali-esque painting with a clock melting to explain to you that the past, present, and future, which were set totally in our minds, aging makes past, present, and future happen. It makes it pliable. We are moving away from that. Every so often you'll see a flicker of light, or you'll see some person on your peripheral vision. It'll bang, be gone, and then other things will reappear. What is this happening? As I said, fully conscious beings have sight as well as the ability to hear through dimensions. What that is as our mind shifts, as we become more and more conscious, all of this stuff, each event of past, present, future, suddenly that's in front of us. Now, not only is therefore past, present, and future, which was relatively pretty defined, starting to kind of become faded in our minds, there's something else. As I said, the light patterns are shifting. You may look up in the sky and bingo, you see what looks like an airplane or a spaceship. Is it there? According to our limited consciousness, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there at all. Yet there it is. So we are beginning consciously to transform, to become beings capable of fully becoming one with this new reality. Now, what does that mean? Let's look over this. First of all, 3D time, as I said, is real and sequential. Now, what I find interesting is that science is slowly beginning to get it. For instance, the director of the Hayden Planetarium is now beginning to look at this whole thing, and he's seeing it as an encased fictional hologram. In other words, long ago, those who dropped us into this 3D imagined and created a reality. And that's what we see around us. And it's not real, because we didn't invent it, they did. Now, as we become more conscious, we're beginning to see, as, for instance, Dr. Degassi said, we are in a hologram that's a fiction. It's like somebody suddenly dropped us into a book. Well, we don't need to live in this book anymore. We need to live in our own reality, one that's real, based upon our spiritual aspects. Now, as we do that and we become more conscious, and remember, with consciousness, every reality with consciousness is a spiritual reenactment and awareness of our reality. Now remember, the key word is spiritual. Spiritual. As you become more conscious, the spirituality of this reality becomes greater. And suddenly the bonds that hold it are not as strong. And we begin to learn about the eternal now. One of the things that every major philosopher of the last 40 years, actually you could say the last 60 years, has said to us, is we have to learn to live in the now. The now is no more than the spiritual essence of who we are. We can call it our higher self. We can call it our true self. We can pick up all kinds of names. We can call it our presence. But the important thing for us to understand about this is that once we enter it, the concept of past, present, and future, this fiction, this world, in the case of us it was the Atlantean priests and then the Anunnaki, created this world. We are moving toward this eternal now, this spiritual aspect, and we're discovering that thoughts create a oneness with this eternal now and create a true reality. And when we create this true reality, this 3D construct begins to fade. It fades away. Now, knowing about this, let's begin to look at what's happening to us right now. Now, we know from everybody, including me, that I have been talking a long time about the whole concept of this change, changing in our chakras, the symptoms from the change of this new construct, the new meridians being produced, the body being integrated. Now, in all of this happening, as I said, there's a new reality. Now, this new reality means that the oligarchs, the dark cabal, the group that basically is trying to keep us encased in the Anunnaki and the Atlantean priest reality, are losing their touch. So, first of all the stuff that worked before isn't going to work anymore. What's going to work is all of us collectively coming together, understanding the spiritual essence of all of this. As a matter of fact, I had a wonderful time last night with a dream that they gave me, which I didn't know was a dream or not. And it talked about the whole process of the switch from corporations to what are called, in the reality phrases that I like to use, a responsible social partnership. It means that everybody has a construct to work with one another, and you have a construct to make society better. And we're moving away from money and into internal prosperity and abundance. So the new prosperity, which is now starting to happen around us, means the end to this present economic system. Now, there is no alternative to it. Capitalism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, all of it doesn't work. That's why who tried it found out it didn't work. Pure laissez-faire capitalism nearly killed us all in the 18th and 19th and 20th centuries because it created so much pollution. It is very hard for a human being to work in a world in which their lungs are attacked, their brains ache, and they're tired beyond belief. Sooner or later, people are going to start to die like flies, which is exactly what happened in the late 19th and early 20th century. They used to talk in Pittsburgh, for instance, that the air was so dark during the daytime that you couldn't see anything. It was like a constant thunderstorm. Think of that. The smog we talk about in Los Angeles was nothing compared to the smog in the early 20th century in major industrial centers like Pittsburgh. And it was not just Pittsburgh. It was happening in England and Manchester, and we can name cities. It doesn't matter. What matters is that laissez-faire capitalism, it allowed a few people to get some money, but the vast majority, it wasn't working. It wasn't creating a better world. It was a mess. Certain things happened to try to make it better, but mixing socialism with capitalism does not work, okay? The only way out of this game is we have to change the economic resources and allow prosperity to come in and allow a new economic system. So over the last 30 years, guess what? A new economic system that we're talking about has started to happen. This has led to a problem. Now, this has been drawn out a little bit, a bit too much to me. Now, many of the people, from what I was told last night, are no longer able to do the stuff they want to really do. They're kind of in a box. Now, don't listen to any of the panic which happens is where people are talking about, the economy is going to collapse, martial law, all this other stuff. Know that there will be some stoppage because of the changes, but know that the reason for all of this is to make the world better. As it says down here in black ink at the bottom, everything will be okay. The world is about to go into a golden age. First, we must cleanse. Just so as it says here in 2, Remain calm. Support those who are changing. Understand what's happening. And it says here what not to do. Don't panic. Don't turn on each other. Don't riot. Don't run into a bank and do crazy things. Please try to be calm and work together to meet the needs of your community. All this is happening. What is happening right now is the final procedures to move funds through this banking system is just about done. There are some parts of this that will start funding out next week. What we have to know over the next month is that these changes are going to allow investments to happen, like the revaluation, the global reset, etc. We already have the gold standard beginning. The last 3 years with the Russian ruble. Remember, Russia is the second largest producer of gold in the world. Secondly, what happened this past week in Shanghai with the gold yuan is just another example of this. All of this is beginning to drain away the whole process of the petrodollar, which is now slowly but surely dying. That is why everybody in the world is spreading all these things about the collapse of U.S. capitalist society is imminent. Everybody talking about and remembering the breadlines and the disasters that was 1929 to the start of World War II in the late 30s. This is not what's happening again. Something great and wonderful is happening. We are close to a new governance, which I like to call Nasara. Whoa. What is going on here? He went through everything too fast. Come on. You're getting a preview far beyond what I wanted. Here we are. My cohort in this is getting a little impatient, so just bear with us. A little comedy. Now, as we were saying, everything is happening. Now let's go through some. We need to trust all of this. I know it's been hard on all of us, but just remember this. Trust, as it says here, is like an eraser. It gets smaller and smaller after every mistake. We need to look at these mistakes and understand that we don't need to have an unwarranted mistrust. Things are finally happening. Whoops. Things are finally happening. There is a new prototype occurring. This is Bucky Fuller, and what he said is very, very important. Well, we don't need to try to repair the world we live in right now. We need to replace it. So we're using a basic change. Now let's look at a little bit of history with this quote to get a better idea of what's happening. At the end of World War II, the United States was the only economic superpower left on the planet. Everything else had been destroyed by 5 to 7 years of really serious war. What we now have to look at is the world grew up over the last 60 years, and now it's beginning to change. The BRIC nations in the early part of this decade began changing it all. The Russians began changing it with the first major effort, which of course was the Russian gold ruble. The next thing that happened was that BRICS began talking about a development bank. Then China developed the AIIB, the Asian Investment Bank, which then became worldwide. Now in Africa, a network has arrived which allows for a very small amount of progress to be made because it lacks the fundings. What China is doing is giving it that fundings. So we now are developing a new bank system for economic redevelopment. We are allowing nations to develop their infrastructures for the first time. We are allowing the same thing to occur not only in Africa, but the same cooperative network exists throughout Asia and Latin America. That's now happening. So the infrastructure It's beginning to change. Beyond that, there's the actual fundings. This required us to go around the banks. So then we had the SIP system, which allowed for overseas monies to be moved from one place to another independent of the American-controlled SWIFT system. Now, we'll just use the names because I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it all. But just remember that there's also in Europe a thing called Basel III and Basel IV. That meant that the cookbooks of the large corporations in Europe and in America and Canada could no longer hide these cookbooks but had to reveal them, which they are on the verge of doing right now. That means they will be bankrupt because the amount of bad swaps and everything else that they did is unbelievable. Which brings us now to Bucky Fuller's quote. Just look at this world, see this change occurring, and see it accelerating every week. See the people who are working hard to delay it failing. See these systems being put together. The SIP system is just about worldwide right now. The new banking regulations, especially Basel III, are worldwide. Look at this new system. Banks can no longer hide what they were doing. International banking is now shifting. But it's not shifting like bang, it's shifting slowly but gradually according to its own momentum. We also have the New Republic. It is prepared as well to go online. Remember, this is Bucky Fuller's quote, and this now, as you put all this in and see it all in motion, imagine you're with your consciousness, your spiritual awareness of this reality. One simple thing. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what the world divinely is doing. Now, the key to all of this is you. I just explained when we were talking about time the power of thought, the power of the essence of who you are. So I want to give you another quote for you to remember. You are powerful beyond your greatest imagination. Now, as I said, the Atlanteans took this imagination away and created their own imagination, the reality we live in. We are taking that back. The first phase we're doing is all the changes happening to all of us. This is divinely happening. Look at all of this happening as part of a massive process of creating this new reality. And at the core of all of this, at the very essence of all of this, is you and your thoughts. What you are doing when you are envisioning this new reality is you are creating the new reality. And as you do this every day, as you imagine it, becoming more and more powerful. Now those who are working every day diligently to change the banking system, to get the funding to you, to create new governance, what they're doing is just running along your consciousness. The key to all this is you. You are not some weak, powerless being. You are the essence of the Creator. Deep in your soul, deep in your essence, is the seed of the Creator. You are one with that. That is yours. No one can take it away from you. It will only grow stronger as you are being integrated, piece by piece, by the angels and the body guardians that are assigned to you by heaven. And at the key, as I said to this, and I want to get this imagination going, remember, you aren't some weak guy. You are powerful beyond your greatest imagination. Now, let's move on. Just remember those two things. Now, let's understand this divine order. We've talked about thought. We've talked about change. We talked about how worldwide this change is moving its way through its own divine order. What do we mean by that? What is this divine order? First of all, let me take a quote by Louise Hayes and improve upon it. Everything you need comes to you in perfect time, perfect space, and sequence. Now let's look at who you are and who this world is. First of all, every one of your contracts of life, every single one of them, is about success, not about failure. So don't feel frustrated. You have within you, as I've said with the one we went back, you have an imagination, a thought. I'm going to call this the divine thought of you. And all of you have this divine thought. Now let it sink inside yourself. Close your eyes and just imagine the world we want. And feel the energy from that. You are a grand being. You are divinely connected to heaven. You are connected to this fictional construct called our reality. And you wish, you intend, you are to change this, to alter it, to transform it, whatever phraseology you wish is more appropriate. And just remember, as it says down here, heaven is working its miracles in a perfect sequence and order. So, you are imagining what you wish, what you intend. The universe is providing it. All of us are doing this. Now further, all of this is based upon love. Trust yourselves. Love and be loved. Where there is a deep trust, there is loving. What is loving? Loving is a deep, innate concern and care for yourself and one another. And you understand that since yourself includes everyone, that your love for yourself includes everyone. And as you look through all of that, and as you understand it, you then say, trust is love. Love affects everyone because we are all, at our core, loving beings. Now let's go a little further. Let's talk about divine order within this. All of us, beyond our frustrations, deep in the core of ourselves, our true self, our presence, our divine presence, we all look at that. Just feel it. And know this. Heaven has decided the divine way for how this reality is to be altered. It is said to those that control this reality, first, the Atlanteans left, and then the Anunnaki, seeing what had happened, they left. That was by the will of heaven. The will of heaven right now is to, in a proper way, non-chaotic. That's what divine order is, non-chaotic. Its decrees, all that it is saying, all every second that the angels in heaven and the eternal and magnificent administrations of heaven are doing is praying. And as they pray and sing their prayers, these decrees result in how the new prosperity and new governance are to be instituted. Just remember, there is $400 quadrillion that is had by both Kuan Yin and Saint Germain in special trusts. These have been transferred through wealth. Wealth in the traditional way was goods, precious goods, gold, silver, and jewels, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, blah, blah, blah. Name them all. We don't wish to get into a minutiae on them. They're there. They are there in unbelievable amounts. They are being created by heaven. The processors of the Galactic Federation can produce tons of these things. Gold coins, gold bars, silver bullion, silver coins, tons of diamonds, tons, literally, of emeralds, etc. All of this wealth is being given to all of us. We are the sacred, living souls. As I started this whole particular webinar out with, I explained that we are all one and that to heaven we are all precious. We are living our lives, many times interfered with by the cabal, but we are living our lives, and that we are moving away from the disrespect of the cabal, and we are moving into a world of eternal freedom, prosperity, and new governance. Now, heaven has set up a timeline. All this is happening is all the banking procedures that for centuries have kept back the wealth in a single limited amounts, those bonds are being broken. Legally, we are ending the old banking laws. Legally, we are taking away from accounts that for years have kept these monies immensely tied up in special trusts, in things that were dealing with how they preserved and maintained their power. Because to them, money is not important. What it is important for is that it is power. For with money, they can control governments, banks, and everything in between. And that is what the power structure, or as we like to call them euphemistically, the powers that be, have been doing for centuries. The time has come to unlock all of this. Now, it's not being unlocked in one magical phrase. It's being unlocked gradually. What you need to constantly hear in your head is the clicks of the opening of vaults, the clicks of the opening of various equipment used, locks, etc., to keep this all bound. It is being unbound. All the zillions of constructive restrictions are going away. Those in power, the oligarchy as I like to call it, know this. They know that all their underlings every day around the world are being arrested. They themselves, many of them, are on house arrest, or many of their sons and daughters who have followed in their evil ways are now being pursued by police, Metropol, etc. Think of all of that. And it's not happening as fast as we would like, but it's a process. Look all the time and feel in your heart this process happening. And know that it is accelerating. Know that the final locks are opening. The final clicks on the vaults are finished. And the great turning of the great wheels that hold that vault together are coming off. And it is many of them, they are starting to take these multi-ton vault doors and move them. And feel the squeaking of the moving of the vaults. Remember, many people who have worked for this have died. I myself know of almost 4 people that died in the last 2 decades in order to create what we're talking about. I knew them personally. I talked to them on the phone. And when I heard from other people, and it was confirmed in the newspapers that these people had died of, quote unquote, suicides, we knew that they were not suicidal people. They didn't hang themselves. They didn't shoot themselves. They didn't overdose. Because they weren't addicts. They were very healthy people. There have been attacks, military attacks, unheard of, unreported, that have happened. I knew of one that happened in the late 90s. And then there is the attack on the underground cities, which happened 3 years ago. What we need to understand in our hearts is that an effort is being made, a very good effort, to allow for the change that is happening, and that the earthly coalitions have merged, and that the divine time is becoming ready for these announcements. They are oh so close. Put that into your mind. Take all that frustration that surrounds and makes heavy your heart, and know that this is changing. Know that deeply. And know that this divine timing is setting up announcements. I love this little quote because it's what is happening right now. I see the beauty of divine timing playing out in my life, and I take the time to enjoy those I share this life with along the way. Don't be frustrated. Don't be limited in how you look at this. Come together with one another. Be in your joy. Do not be frustrated. Do not be panicked. Know that this is about a process of change. And be on the side of joy. Just to know, as I've said again and again, heaven's purpose, heaven's divine purpose, is to achieve with all of us prosperity and freedom. That is the ultimate goal of heaven. Now, divine timing for manifesting landings and mentoring. What does disclosure mean? Disclosure is the final leg before that most wondrous time. So then you have to ask yourself a question. And this is what I deeply believe. 2016, it indeed is the UFO disclosure year. As it says here, and I've been hinting at from the very beginning, we are now approaching the greatest watershed in human history. I put a little bunch of question marks there because I want you to think. I want you to believe all of this. Because the skeptics, who indirectly are the supporters of the cabal, want us to believe that it'll never happen. Want us to create scenes of horror and destruction, movies, etc., that make all of this seem the way they would like it to be. That there are evil invaders, that the world is not good, and that we are basically evil. We aren't any of those. We are basically good. We are the children of the great, loving Creator. We live in a heaven that wishes only to please us and make us happy. And that is now where we're happening. What I'm doing today with you is consciously showing you how there are immense layers that are unlocking. And unlocking in as fast as they can. If we unlock this too fast, you wouldn't be ready. As it is, the majority of the world, when all this happens, will probably do crazy things, bank runs, spending billions of dollars in a second, and blah, 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 all kinds of crazy scenarios you can think of. Our job is one thing, to be knowledgeable, to know about the divinity of what is happening, and to take our voice to the people at the right moment. Now, the Galactic Federation has been working. There's not been a major war on this planet. Governments are much more accepting. BRICS happened because of the Galactic Federation. China, attempting to recreate the omnipotence of the Chinese government in Asia, before this last 300 years, they would like very much to do that. They aren't doing it. They're doing it according to a special thing hinted by the ancient families and especially hinted at by Kuan Yin. If you go into a modern Chinese port, you will see at the entrance 25 or 30, whatever foot statue of Kuan Yin in the traditional Buddhist pyramid with her hands up, etc. The masters and the Federation are making a difference because China knows its limitations. Its limitations are its people. Its people still believe, because until 20 years ago all of them were farmers practically, and they believed in the conservative three-way concept of ancient China: Confucianism, Taoism, Mahayana Buddhism. There are things said in Tao that are very important to what's happening in China right now. Confucianism talks about bureaucracy and how it serves the people, not the other way around. It's very Jeffersonian that way. So remember this about the Federation. Direct physical contact ends the present beliefs about who we truly are. We end this nonsense of modern anthropology about the origins of humanity. And we learn about our extraterrestrial origins. It is the vehicle which will reunite us with our brethren in inner earth, the Agarthans, and in space, the Galactic Federation itself. And the mentors are here to show humans how to return to our natural state of consciousness, which is full consciousness, or becoming again, as I also like to call it, a physical angel. And all that that represents. I've done lots of lectures on what a physical angel is. And talking about Taoism, here's one of the quotes from the Book of Changes. The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. Guess what the masters have done with all of us? That is important for us. Now, therefore remember, the Galactic Federation is here. It is doing all that it can, and also remember, every major government has adopted, as well as the magazines and the media and the movies and all that, a very anti-ET concept. Oh, there have been some movies like E.T. There have been some nice ones, but most of them have not been. We have created a vast energy against that. We are unlocking all of that as well. Now, to continue. We talked about this shift. Remember this, and it's very important to remember this. The fact that there is a beginning or an end is just a concept seeded into your mind by society. Remember, we talked about this with the Anunnaki. You are constant, continuous, infinite energy, and energy never ends. Even Einstein and Newton knew this. Energy never ends, it transforms. So as Lao Tzu in the Book of Changes said, higher consciousness transforms realities. That's what we are doing. Now as you see all of this being introduced, the higher consciousness coming in, which means the higher level of spiritual awareness, things are changing, and here are all those locks opening. Now, ourselves, or as it says here, doing our part, working together to prepare ourselves as we await our reality shift. Whoops, there we go. We need to develop a plan, not as detailed as, say, this feasibility study. What we need to do is come together, talk to one another as all this happens, and figure out what's the best thing for us to do. Use fluid management. Discover what you are capable of together. And as you do all of that, watch amazing things happen. I discovered in just a little bit of things once when I went on a trip to Europe about 20 years ago. We worked together with groups, and we discovered how groups could come up with solutions. It amazed me at all the stuff they'd come up with. And if they had the financial resources, think of the great amount of changes that could happen. And I expect all that to happen. Now, stay informed about prosperity. There are amazing things happen. We're going to be talking about that shortly. But I like this little quote. It kind of puts, at this new moon, which is coming up, we're finishing off the new moon, actually I guess the waxing moon. Plant a seed for the universe to tend. Set your vision upon the stars. That's what we've been talking about. As we got to say now, use the same fact that the sky is the limit for your plans, just as we've talked about community. And let's go further with this. You are one in joy with each other. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Remember that. Let the fear and frustration go. Be in joy and watch the plan happen. All right. Now I'm going to finish up with a little overall review, and I'm sure we'll have some more questions that Colleen's going to give to enlarge this further. But let me go through what is happening. Okay. The global economy is collapsing. Yes, it is. It's a wonderful little quote. You see the dollar getting eaten up by the crocodiles, and everybody running to the gold coins, the new currency. Okay, as it says here, the collapse of USA Inc. is quite close. Fiat money, which became important at the end of World War II, is no longer a part of all of this. It is dying. Way back in the 18th century, coin was important. Practically nobody used dollars. It's now going back to that. Only this time the paper money is going to be covered by the ability to exchange it, to exchange the gold, as we did all through our world in America until the beginnings of the post-war World II era. So the global economy is collapsing. But remember, as I said this before, the key here is the networks, the small banking networks in Latin America, especially sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. They now need to be empowered. The Chinese have begun empowering these networks, especially in Asia, sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America, but not to the levels yet that truly are required. The humanitarian funds, which over the next few weeks are going to pour forth, are going to finish the empowerment. We are heading headlong over the next month or two into a whole new currency, a whole new reality, and a whole new governance. Now, the exact dates I'm not able to say, or even if I could, I wouldn't be allowed to, but what's important to say that I can say, we are talking about weeks here, not years. This is all happening right now. Understand that in your mind. We are at the end of this vast switch, which is going to allow a world global reset of currency and monies, a revaluation of immense proportions, and new governance, which will oversee all of this, which allows for new banking realities, Basel III and IV, which ends the whole concept of these private investment schemes, these credit swaps and all this other crap, worthless money. That is going to be gone. But it's at the tail end. Now, not only is that happening, but the new prosperity over the next few weeks, it's going to start to pour forth. What does that mean? That means a new time of great abundance is ready for you now. The Masters have bequeathed you a truly heavenly gift. As this happens, and it could take a month or two, that's 4 to 8 weeks, we are about to see a whole new reality, because within that will be a new governance, Nasara, which we're going to talk about next. Now, as Bucky Fuller said when he was putting his quote together, he said, the key is not to try to repair the old way. The key is to come up with a new model and make it work. That's what all the people of the world are doing. We can talk about BRICS and the AIIB and SIPs and the banks and the monies, the $400 trillion and the basic same amount by Saint Germain in Europe. We can talk about how there are various young royals dedicated to all of this, those older ones, and that there is a vast amount of ancient families in Asia and other places. There's a lot of them in the Americas also who are working very hard to bring all of this forward. Some amazing things are about to happen, and that's what's important. And sitting at the head of all of this is Nasara. In front of Nasara is one thing, one important thing: the World Trust Funds of Saint Germain and Kuan Yin. All of that is to be distributed. It's very close to happening right now. Very close. And overseeing the whole thing, the Galactic Federation of Light. New government, full disclosure, contact. Think of all of those things. We are reaching a point where great changes are happening. The economic system is changing. The petrodollar is practically dead right now. Think of what that means to the world. The economic collapse, which everybody has been forecasting for America and the world, will not happen. There's a prosperity program that is switching in right now. Just keep feeling and hearing and seeing all those locks coming, the tumblers clicking, the locks opening, the vaults that haven't been moved for centuries suddenly squeaking open. And you can hear the huge, balanced tons of steel vaults suddenly opening. And in them, a vast wealth there for us. And with the end of these governments based upon fiat money and very unusual power, what I call hierarchical, non-meritorial power, all of that going away in one fell swoop. With it, all kinds of incredible inventions. With it, freedom, liberty, and the chances for all of us to take our humanitarian RV and prosperity funds and create a new world. And with that new world, the Federation, Yugarthans, the Masters, all coming in. Think of all of this. Use your focus, my dear ones, my loved ones, my fellow people of this planet. Come together and think and be. Let all of this happen. And finally, understand with all of this that full consciousness is indeed near. And as a result of that, and all the things we're talking about happening, we are in an age of miracles. So just take a deep breath, see all those locks falling down, see all this change occurring, and understand deeply in your inner heart, that heart that connects directly to your higher self, your I am presence, whatever you want to call it, and that it is coming together, that all the integrations of heaven are producing you to be on the edge of full consciousness and of meeting our brothers and sisters of both inner earth and of space, and rejoining after over 13 millennia of separation the human race again, the fully conscious human race, and our time in the fall over, and a joy beyond belief in all of us. And so I come to the end, and I bring it over to my wonderful, magnificent other half here, the magnificent one of the other half of who I am, my dear Kalini. Come on in, my love.
I'm very far out there, so I do have to get grounded again. That imagery was really great, and I just, wow, I was very deeply touched, and I'm sure many, many of us were. So this is how to get a hold of us, as you know. I'm going to ask a few questions, Sheldon, right now before we get to the After Abundance webinar. No, actually, I'm being told to do it the way I always do it. I need to shift up. Okay, so let's get back. Okay, so as you all know, every month we release the webinar from 2 months previous, and this one's going to be After Abundance. Woohoo, this was well attended. We broke all records, and in this webinar, Sheldan was guided by the Galactic Federation to explain what is happening to us during and after the funds are delivered and to prepare us for the coming changes. So he touched on a little bit here, but in this webinar he goes into great detail. He talks about the prosperity funds. Why must prosperity funds be delivered before disclosure? How will first world countries receive prosperity funds, and then third world countries? He talks about debt forgiveness. He talks about what will happen to the bank and the bankers. I almost said banksters.
Which is appropriate.
Because that's what they are. But anyway, what happens to the banks, you know, and to corporations and to their shareholders? And he touched a little bit on the corporation that he got downloaded last night. I didn't know that. That was cool. And also about the new governance and how will the new government be formed and what will happen to the people currently running our governments, which there were lots of questions about that today. And release of the new technologies, that's what we're wanting very much as well. What type of technologies will be released in conjunction with the prosperity funds, and what technologies will come after the landing. So there's stages of the technologies that we will be receiving. So managing our funds, what can we do with our new funds, and how will our lifestyles change, and how long after the abundance program will the landings arrive? These are all talked about, and how we're going to be mentored in this webinar, After Abundance. So that was a really powerful webinar, especially if you were on the one on Thursday. But anyway, okay, all of a sudden it's dark in my room. There we go. Turn the lights on. I guess the sun went behind the clouds. Okay, Sheldan, let's just talk a little bit about, because we did say that you would update us on the abundance, where we're at now. So the Chinese yuan, it's been backed by gold now. And how does that affect the U.S. dollar? There's so much misinformation out there about that. People are really afraid that, well, one, if then we can't deal with China and half of our products come from China, and people are saying, well, then that's why it won't happen that way. How does this actually affect us, and how does it force us into really complying with the new?
Okay, we have fiat currency that's the Fed dollar, which simply means that, for those who don't know what I'm saying when I'm saying the Fed dollar, it simply means the dollar from the Federal Reserve. That dollar is, as I said, is fiat. Now, gold is a true value currency. Russia has, example, this is going to cause great changes. It's going to be much more powerful because for 3 years, the Russian ruble has been the gold ruble. So what we have are now two major nations, Russia and China, which are the two major nations in the BRICS countries, working very heavily to create a gold currency. This is now causing Europe, namely the euro, to weaken tremendously. The petrodollar, under the treaties created for the petrodollar, because of the changes in China, is causing the petrodollar to, right now it is collapsing. That means that the Fed is starting to see its dollar. It may have been worth 10 cents. Now it's not even going to be worth a penny. So what is happening right now is the economy of the U.S. is, on the long run, over the next few months, is being vastly affected. So what has to happen now, as I see it, is that the new governance needs to come in, because now the U.S. government is on the verge of bankruptcy, true bankruptcy, because now all the powers it has are dying. Its trust funds can now be changed in value, etc. The stock market is getting close to collapsing. We're seeing various signs of that. Those people that run the trust funds and the various other funds that are the large-scale funds for the stock market are draining out, and it's now going to be accelerated. So we are on the verge of what many people who have looked at the stock market and seen it as a collapse. We're roughly, you might say, in the equivalent right now economically for the U.S. of early October 1929. But don't panic, please. It doesn't mean that we're weeks or months from a new depression. It means that the monies that are about to flow, now we're, through the changes in bank governance, the new rules, the new regs, whatever you want to call them, banks have now been forced, with the SIPs taking over from the SWIFT account, which was with money, how to transfer funds from one country to another. We are now at the very edge of all these vast amounts of money, gold-backed monies, etc., of coming in. This will now force, beyond belief, a reevaluation of currencies, which is the first phase of creating a global currency reset. It means that the United States now, in order to survive, needs to find a way to go back its monies. It means a new governance is close to happening. That's what I see. So there's the first answer of this. Yes, we are at the verge. We're talking weeks, maybe even days. Who knows? It depends how fast the RV is allowed to start out the gate. It means that we are now, as the monies come in, the humanitarian funds come in, the U.S. government is being forced finally to give it all up. So that's what we're in now. We're in the final end game of this USA Corp, and we're in the final end game of fighting the inevitable, which is the change in currencies and the new banking. Practically every bank in the United States now is at least Basel III compliant. So what we are finding out now is that the old ways are happening. So once again, what I want to have people remember is the locks coming open, not the doors of the economy closing. Look at it, as it said throughout this, as I have told you, that we are at the edge of a great abundance, not another depression. What's happening for the economy of the U.S. is a depression. But we aren't going to be a part of that because there is a worldwide flow of monies that is about to hit us. And as a result of this, it's going to change everything. I hope that helps. I hope I answered it.
Hallelujah. Jeff says, Sheldon, can you please elaborate a little bit? How can money come into this banking system when it is controlled by the Fed and it is supported by government policy? How does the money find its way in without the change coming first? So, I mean, you covered that a little bit, but now can you expound on that a little bit more?
Sure.
And the sequence. The other 10 questions are all about the sequence. So,
okay, let's start out with the. Okay, now we have the Fed collapsing. We have the U.S. government, which is tied to the Fed, collapsing. And so we have China coming into the United States and saying, if you will follow these rules, we'll go back the new U.S. dollar, which is now not the USD, but the Treasury Bank note that is going to become, I will call this the USN. United States note. It's not tied to the Fed. It's going to be tied to the Treasury. As a matter of fact, the Fed indirectly has already been absorbed by Treasury. So what is happening is the money, as the new money comes in, it's going to suck out the remaining power of the United States government. So what we're going to see over the next few weeks, to a month or two at the most, is the death of this government, the rise of this new currency, USN, or as it used to be called, the TRN, Treasury Reserve Note. This new money is leading the way with the infrastructure and humanitarian monies also coming into this country as well as others throughout the world. These are billions and trillions of dollars to create a new reality, a new economic system, because ultimately the machine of any economy is its financial system. And the heart of any financial system is the strength of its currency. And so then the strength of the new currency, it's kind of like being in New Orleans when the hurricane hit. The flood of water is this time for the government going to be a flood of money. And this is going to shift everything and change it. And so this is going to cause a vast change, which will then allow the prosperity to come in to further emphasize this and will lead to the rise of the reserves, which means the RV the revaluation and everything that deals with it. So just see this, it's a cycle. We can't give a date, but we can say it's very, very close to all of this happening. So just know that in your heart. Put it there in your mind of minds, your I am presence or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and just know you can actually, with your thought, will the final part of this through. So let's all focus on it, and let's watch it happen.
let's focus on it with love in our hearts.
Right.
You know, I'm not even for retribution, but I want them out of the way, the the cabal. And we have to do our part. And so many of us have gone through the frustration. I see that lifting in more and more of the emails that come to me. It's like, we're tired of being frustrated, so might as well just do what we know we came here to do, which is to add energy to the successful outcome and the graceful outcome of what our hearts desire, and everything that Sheldon just talked about. So yeah, open those gates and see the flow happening, because that's one of the first steps to catapulting us toward our ascension.
Right.
Okay, Michael says, how are we going to have a smooth transition when 90% of the people have no clue about what is going on and what is coming? Most people live day to day buying what they need with their debit cards, at least in this country. And what happens if when those debit cards and ATM machines suddenly stop working? So How long do you think the banking holiday will be?
3 to 5 days. I'm hoping 3.
Yeah. And so they probably will put it in with a weekend. So even if it's 3 days, that's 5 days. So that's why it's good to have some food and some water and some, uh, gas in your car. So don't let it get to empty. Um, all the ascended masters and the GF and the elders and the royals and they all want it to be a smooth transition. But it is true, 90% of the people have no clue, so they could panic. How's that going to be handled?
Okay, it's important right now that we understand deeply in our hearts that what we need to do is to blast the internet. Now the structure that is going to explain the new stuff is going to be the emergency broadcast network. And it exists in all cable stations. It exists on regular network stations. What is needed, and Treasury understands this, and they're going to blast this forth, is there is money out there that can be done. There will be lots of money out there. There's going to be prosperity. We need to understand, this is why community is so important. We need to understand that we need to go into our communities as this happens and explain, whether it's just talks at a Starbucks or a coffee place or whatever place we use, and just explain to as many people as you can. Because if you explain it to people you know, the people that you know people you don't know, and they'll start talking about it, and a network happens. Plus they'll hear stuff on the emergency network, which will just break into shows in daytime and in prime time, and explain. Put those things out. What is going to be happening is it's going to go from just a network of text to a network where people actually explain. So know this, and what your job is to aid and abet. If you have a blog, advertise it and use it. Our job right now is to communicate, and this is what we will need to do. And so understand deeply inside yourself that this is what we're doing. We're communicating to people about what's happening. When people know what's happening and they hear it on television, it verifies it. It adds to it. It explodes it. In other words, it gets a larger and larger audience. And if you do this, it'll work. Just like in Hollywood, they say the one thing they want more than anything is for people who see something to say it to others. This is how giant billion-dollar hits in Hollywood happen. People talk to people. Only now we're not talking about the goodness or badness of a movie, its acting, its content, or whatever. We're talking about events of the day. We're talking about the stuff happening. How does this affect us, all of us? Do it with love in your hearts. And just know this is going to explode. People networks explode. Unbelievable. In China, where there was an unbelievable restriction on it, the students there, using their own networks of word of mouth, exploded to the point where the Chinese government nearly collapsed. Understand your power. That's why I said about thought and about yourselves. Understand your power and use it. Don't be afraid. Be in joy about this, and amazing things will happen. So just be prepared. This is not that far off. Just when you start seeing it happening, use your heart. Talk with your heart, not with any fear in your brain. Talk with your heart and just explain to people what's happening to the best of your knowledge of what you know. And there will be so much energy from others, from their blogs, etc. Take that information, print it, hand it out, talk. Just do that. And if we are very offensive with this, in other words, we go out there and do this, amazing things will happen. Like I said, China, a government of over a billion people, nearly overthrown. Eastern Europe, just that factor. The government thing that knocked down communism in Eastern Europe was when a bunch of churchgoers in southern Eastern Germany got outside and decided to start something. Well, they collapsed the government of East Germany, and now it's about every communist country, and 2 years later they even got the Soviet Union to fall apart. So don't underestimate your power and abilities. That's all I want to say right now, but that I feel is enough.
Okay.
Don't underestimate yourself.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just going to go over the sequence and tell me if I'm wrong, because more and more people keep asking. So it's the prosperity packages, and if you don't know what any of these things mean, please get Sheldon's Abundance webinar. It explains everything. He's done it many times. So the prosperity programs packages, then NESARA is announced. As soon as NESARA is announced, new technologies will be released, as well as, things like chemtrails won't be allowed anymore and things like that.
Right.
That happens almost instantaneously.
Right.
Then the RV happens very quickly after that. So we have our new governments when the RV comes out so that we can trust the money that comes in. And then the GCR happens, which is the global currency reset, then disclosure, then landings and more technologies, and we get introduced to our mentors. Then we go into inner earth, and we have our final ascension, and we are in 5D.
You're in 5D and in a world that we didn't believe existed, and suddenly it will be every day to us. So yay, yay.
So was that pretty accurate?
Pretty accurate, I'd say, love. Pretty accurate.
Okay. So Robert had asked, when will the new medical technologies become accessible? We are dying of chronic illnesses and being made worse by the cabal's pharmaceuticals. So I hope that, actually some are starting to come out a little bit, but they're just not accessible to everybody, really. So I don't think you need to go there. Okay. One thing that maybe we need to go over is do you have any idea why the Chinese elders and royals are so cautious when the GF says that they have their backs?
I think it's just cultural. They're used to doing things over detailed because they have lived in a world that was very dangerous. And when you've spent decades living in a world that's very dangerous, you are cautious, and that's what's happening. And even though they're told, it's just like us. If we were told that we're going to be billionaires in 10 days, we would sit down and worry every day if that's really going to happen. And that's what we in humanity, unfortunately, are at. And we are a very cautious group because we have been beaten down for thousands of years, and we don't trust it. You might say that our genetics are such that we no longer trust these kind of things. And so we look around, and I'm sure the elders are doing this, and say, okay, we have an unbelievable responsibility. If we lose even 10% of this, we have failed. And that's how they think. And so if you think in that direction, in that way, you can see why, even though somebody would say, there's no worries, we'll get it to the people, they'll say, well, what about this, what about that, what about this? Because their questions will then be about all the cautious stuff based on all the events that have happened to them or their ancestors over the past few thousand years.
So, next. Gina wants to know, the facade is being stripped away to reveal the ugly, undemocratic reality of big party politics in the United States and in other countries, and ordinary people are becoming enraged. Is this a curse or a blessing in disguise?
I call it a blessing in disguise. This democratic and quote-unquote system of elections is not a system of elections, it's a system of selections. What has happened is there are a couple of major groups in both parties that control pretty much the political parties, and they know that they have underlings, minions so to speak, who control the electronics of it. No longer when we vote are we sure that the vote that we have issued, thought about and carefully selected and put our ballot where we thought it would be safe. No. Electronics changes everything instantaneously to what they want. So understand that and realize deep inside your heart that as this system falls and we finally get a fair way of doing things. I think that the first election after all of this is done will probably be by paper ballot, no electronics, and it'll probably take the old-fashioned way, like 2 to 3 or 4 days afterwards, to get an inkling of who is the major candidate. So I welcome that because I have seen how electronics have changed this world. I saw it initially in New York State when I was much younger. I saw how there was this rush to electronics and how they deeply wanted to make it fair, but in actuality what they were doing was making it even more of a selection process, where the people in charge are the people that decide, not us. And so now we can finally return to where with paper ballots and no more electronics, that it's us who decides this process and not them being the oligarchs. So I look forward to this, and I'm glad that all these things are happening right now. People are mad about it, and they are getting to see how Congress doesn't listen to them. It listens to the oligarchs, and how the elections are controlled to produce candidates that listen to them. And so when we finally do this and change everything, we are ending that system. And we should say, no, we've lost something. We should say, rather, we've gained something. The old reality no longer works, and this new system will, even though it's returned to technologies that are very old. But it's the only way to do this. Yay, paper ballots.
Can you please comment on why it is important to ascend in our physical body? Will we be able to offer more help when we ascend if we do this to the galaxy?
We have a fate, a destiny. And what heaven is doing is allowing us to achieve our destiny. So this physical transformation of us, where we unite with our spiritual aspects, and we become a spiritual physical being, which is why I call this being a physical angel. This then expands out and returns us to where we originally were when we came here as colonists from these fully conscious planets, and we will now return because of this to where we're meant to be. We've kind of gone through this great fall, had unbelievable consequences for this, like unbelievable amount of debts, etc., through generations, and now we return to where we were 13 millennia ago, and we return once again to being fully conscious beings achieving our goals. And one of these goals, these fates, when we fully understand what's in our Akashic records, we'll understand what we need to do, and heaven will once again provide it for us. So just know that this physical spiritual ascension is returning us to who we're meant to be, so we can complete what is the destiny of all of us throughout this planetary system, because some of us will go to Mars and Venus, etc. And we're going to, together, people from the solar system, create a wonderful energy to change the remaining aspects of this galaxy, and eventually all of the physical universe, too, creating amazing wonderfulness, which is what we're to do, to teach people about light bodies, etc. So let us all go through the process and then fulfill the fate that heaven has given us.
Okay. Jan wants to know, when we go into Inner Earth, will we have a life review?
Yes, we'll go through it's basically what's happening to us as we do the ascend is 3 days in this crystal chamber. I did a lecture, and I also did a webinar where I explained what happens to you on each day. And one of the first things that happens is you have with your guardians and your council, your angelic council that is in charge with you of your soul, you'll go through reviews just as if you had gone through the old getting old, suddenly passing away, and going through the same process. So indeed, part of the ascension is indeed going through the same stuff that we go through when we have death. Exactly what the details of it I don't know, but I do know one of the basic aspects is this life review. So we will go through that.
Okay. Now, there's lots of questions on the present earthquakes that have been happening and the prediction that the west coast of the United States and South America and Canada will be getting more and more earthquakes, and then volcanoes as well. And can you comment on that, because it's just like dozens of questions. So basically give us an update on earth changes.
Okay, the amount of volcanism in the ocean is increasing. There are whole areas of the west coast of North America. You can go from Alaska all the way down to Panama, and then go beyond it down the Andes all the way to Patagonia. What all of this is happening is, and the same thing is happening on the other side of the Pacific, all through eastern China all the way down to Southeast Asia. What is happening is there are changes, volcanism, etc. There are ocean levels increasing because of the melting of the glaciers and the huge ice packs of the polar region. What is happening is this is part of a natural process. It doesn't mean that California and Alaska are going to fall into the ocean. It just means that there are certain changes that are happening, and that there are indeed major areas that will experience more of this than others. But what it also means, and I really want people to understand this, is the change is happening only up to a certain point. It's not the massive change that's going to happen when we finally go to inner Earth to become fully physical beings again. Then there will be a massive cleansing of this entire planet that we couldn't live on if we were there. Luckily we won't be. As I said, we'll be in our crystal chambers transforming into fully conscious beings. So the massive amounts that many people have talked about and predicted will not happen until we leave for the final aspect. It will also allow for flora and fauna to be saved and for a lot of major other things to happen, because the atmosphere is going to be cleansed and all, and the new atmosphere entered, and we could go on to about the firmaments and go on and on forever. But just know that most of that will happen after we leave. And until then, there will be some changes, but not as drastic as has been predicted by many.
Okay, that's good news. But once again, you know, it's just wise to have some supplies on hand. That's just
Exactly.
a given no matter what's happening, really.
Right.
But, okay, let's end with this, because I want you to talk about debt forgiveness. So how will Canada be affected, and other countries around the world? Will we receive prosperity funds and debt forgiveness?
Okay, debt forgiveness is a part of NESARA, which is the U.S. thing. There's also going to be an enlargement of it called GESARA, which simply means Global Economic System Change. And what is happening is all of us will get prosperity, whether it's the form of taxation, an increase in various funds to allow us to survive, whatever it is. However, and we also get humanitarian funds and prosperity funds. It'll all filter out. I can't give a month by month, week by week process, because practically nobody knows that. Or if they do know, they're in some special office that has spent millions of dollars trying to figure out possible scenarios and using what has happened to then use computers to figure the scenarios out with even more accuracy. That we don't have. But during the next few weeks to few months, we will see more and more people getting into prosperity, creating new realities, and we will see this going worldwide. And indeed, it means that there will be a debt forgiveness. One of the things with the new banking system is a jubilee. Even the Pope has talked about this. Religious leaders have talked about this. So just know there's a jubilee coming up. There'll be a zeroing out of all the bank debt, etc., and we will be getting these new monies, and wonderful, amazing things are going to happen. As I said, I can't get into the details of it all because every person and every group, every part of the country is slightly different, and so unless, as I said, you had this immense computer program that you have been working on with a lot of other people for a lot of money, you won't really know what exactly the sequencing is. So I'm just going to say everybody will have it, and then it's very close, because I don't have the money in the sequencing to do that. So anyway.
Okay. Well, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for hanging in there for almost 2 hours. There's just so much to cover every month. It's just, we're all just so excited. So remember that navigating multidimensional realities is our full-time job. So remembering waking up and mastery is our priority now. So consciousness is how you do this. So choosing your priorities and actually committing and doing it is what we all want to choose. Be sure to invoke the violet flame for yourself and for the planet, Ecuador, Japan, all the places that are affected, all the people, so that they can have a little more gentle time accepting what they're involved in currently. Much love. Salamat ja, Sazuma, heartfelt gratitude. It's all yours, Shell.
Thank you, my love. I'm just going to do this with a quick prayer. I'm going to ask the Supreme Creative Force to come around us all and to use all the information and all the things given to us and all the information that was invisible for us except as energies given to us from other dimensions. Use all of this to collectively help us all create this new reality. And with that, I say thank you all for participating with me in all of this and with us. And thank you all for doing all that you do every day to help make all of this happen. Just know the great Creator loves all of us. We are all the wonderful offspring of this magnificent being, this wonderful thought that is creating all of us right now. And with that, I just say, final thanks, a great Sazuma, and I will see you again for those who show up, and hopefully there's many, on Thursday. And until then, so long for now, and have a wonderful day.